Imagine a city that never sleeps, where lights flicker endlessly and the hum of ambition fills the air. In this city lives a young woman named Clara, her days a blur of deadlines and dreams. She is talented, driven, a rising star in her company, yet beneath her polished smile lies a quiet storm. Fear. It creeps into her thoughts like a thief in the night, whispering doubts about her worth, her future, her place in this vast, unpredictable world. Will she fail? Will she lose everything she's worked for? The questions gnaw at her, heavy as stones in her chest. Clara's fear is not unique. It is the same shadow that falls across so many hearts in our modern age, a world of constant change, where success feels like a race against time. We fear not measuring up, not being enough. We fear the unknown, the what-ifs that spiral in the dark hours. But what if fear is not the enemy we imagine? What if, instead, it is a teacher pointing us toward a deeper truth? Long ago, the Buddha sat beneath a Bodhi tree, his heart open to the mysteries of existence. He saw fear in its raw form, not as a force to flee, but as a fleeting guest, born of our attachment to things that cannot last. All is impermanent, he taught. The job we cling to, the reputation we build, the future we try to control, these are like clouds passing across the sky. When we grasp at them, we invite fear to linger. But when we see their fleeting nature, we begin to find freedom. Clara, like so many of us, has not yet learned this truth. She sits late at night, her laptop glowing, her mind racing. Emails pile up, each one a demand, a reminder of what's at stake. Her heart pounds as she imagines losing her position, disappointing her family, fading into obscurity. She feels alone, as if no one else carries this weight. But the Buddha's wisdom whispers softly, "You are not your fears. They are but waves on the surface of your mind." One evening, exhausted, Clara steps outside her apartment, the city's noise a distant hum. She notices a small park, one she's passed 100 times but never entered. Something draws her in, a need for stillness, perhaps. She sits on a bench, the cool air brushing her skin, and for the first time in months, she breathes deeply. A single star blinks through the city's haze, and she wonders, what if I could let go of this fear, even for a moment? The Buddha once shared a story of a man chased by a tiger. Fleeing, he came to a cliff and climbed down a vine, only to find another tiger waiting below. As he clung to the vine, two mice, one black, one white, began to gnaw at it. Death seemed certain. Yet beside him grew a strawberry, red and ripe. With tigers above and below, with the vine fraying, he plucked the strawberry and ate it. How sweet it tasted. This is the wisdom of impermanence. Life is fragile, uncertain, yet within it are moments of beauty if we dare to see them. Clara, sitting in that park, feels a flicker of this truth. Her fear has not vanished, but it feels less like a cage. She wonders if there is another way to live, a way to face the uncertainty without being consumed. A proverb echoes through the ages. Fear is the shadow of attachment. Let go and light returns. Clara's journey is just beginning, but already she senses a possibility, a path not of escaping fear, but of walking through it with courage, with grace. For in the heart of fear lies the seed of awakening, if only we are willing to look. Clara returns to her apartment, the star's faint light lingering in her mind. She tries to hold on to that moment of calm, but the weight of her days soon presses in again. Work demands her attention, her phone buzzing with notifications, yet beneath it all, something deeper stirs. It is not just the fear of what lies ahead, but the ache of what came before. Old wounds, carried silently, like stones in a riverbed, smoothed by time, but never gone. We all carry such wounds. A harsh word from a parent, a betrayal by a friend, the loss of someone we loved. These pains shape us, sometimes more than we know. For Clara, the pain is tied to her childhood of father who left when she was young, a mother who worked tirelessly to fill the gap. Clara learned early to be strong, to hide her hurt, to prove she was enough. But the hurt remains, a quiet ache that surfaces in moments of stillness. The Buddha taught that pain is part of life, the first noble truth. To live is to encounter suffering. Yet suffering is not the same as pain. Pain is the wound. Suffering is the story we build around it, the way we cling to it, letting it define us. Clara's suffering comes from her belief that she must always be strong, that her father's absence means she is unworthy of love. She carries this story like a heavy cloak, unaware that she can set it down. One night, unable to sleep, Clara finds an old photo album tucked away in a drawer. She flips through it, her fingers tracing images of her younger self smiling, carefree, before the weight settled in. A memory surfaces, her mother exhausted after a long shift, sitting with her at the kitchen table, teaching her to fold paper cranes. Each fold is a wish, her mother said. Make it with care. Clara folded 1,000 cranes that year, wishing for her father to return. He never did. The Buddha once told of a woman named Kissa Gotami, whose infant son had died. Mad with grief, she carried his body from house to house, begging for medicine to bring him back. A wise man sent her to the Buddha, who said, "Bring me a mustard seed from a home untouched by death." Kissa searched, but every home had known loss. Slowly she understood. Death, pain, and loss are woven into the fabric of life. No one escapes them. Kissa returned to the Buddha, her heart still heavy but her mind clearer. She buried her son and began to walk a path of understanding, finding solace not in denying pain but in seeing its shared nature. Clara, holding that photo album, feels a tear slip down her cheek. For the first time, she wonders if her pain is not hers alone, but part of something larger, a thread connecting her to others. She thinks of her mother, folding cranes despite her own exhaustion, pouring love into each careful crease. Perhaps strength is not in hiding pain, but in facing it and letting it be. The Buddha's teaching of the Four Noble Truths offers a map for this journey. The second truth tells us that suffering arises from craving for things to be different, for pain to vanish, for life to bend to our will. Clara craves the father who left, the certainty that she is enough. Yet the third truth whispers of hope. There is a way to end suffering, not by erasing pain, but by changing how we meet it. The fourth truth, the Noble Eightfold Path, points to a life of mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom. Clara begins to notice small moments of choice. At work, when a critical email arrives, she pauses before spiraling into fear. She takes a breath, feels the air fill her lungs, and lets the moment pass. It is not a cure, not yet, but a glimpse of light. She starts to seek out quiet spaces, moments in her day to simply be. One morning, on her way to work, she stops at a small bookstore. A book on mindfulness catches her eye, its cover simple, unassuming. She buys it not knowing why, but feeling a pull towards something new. In the evenings, Clara reads a few pages, her mind wrestling with the ideas. Mindfulness, the book explains, is not about emptying the mind, but about seeing clearly, watching thoughts and feelings without being swept away. The Buddha likened it to a lute. If the strings are too tight, they snap. Too loose, they cannot play. The mind, too, needs balance, neither clinging nor fleeing, but resting in the present. One night, Clara tries a simple practice. She sits on her couch, closes her eyes, and listens to the sounds around her, the hum of the refrigerator, the distant wail of a siren. She notices her thoughts drifting to tomorrow's deadlines, to her father's absence, but she gently brings her focus back to her breath. In, out. In, out. For a few minutes, the weight lifts. She feels not fixed, but lighter, as if a door has cracked open. A saying from the Buddha's time lingers in her mind. In the stillness of now, fear and pain dissolve. Clara is far from mastering this, but she senses its truth. The bookstore becomes a weekly ritual, a place where she finds not just books, but moments of refuge. She begins to notice others there, people reading quietly, searching, like her, for something to ease their hearts. This is the beginning of awakening, not a grand revelation, but a quiet shift. Clara is learning to pause, to breathe, to see her pain not as a prison, but as a teacher. The path is long, and she is only at its start, but the light she glimpsed in that park, in that breath, grows a little brighter. For in the heart of mindfulness lies the seed of peace, waiting to unfold. Clara's days begin to shift, subtle as the turning of seasons. The bookstore, with its soft light and scent of old pages, becomes her sanctuary. She carries the mindfulness book everywhere, its edges worn from her touch. Yet the weight of her fears and old wounds still lingers like a river current pulling at her feet. She notices how tightly she holds on to things, her need to control outcomes, to prove herself, to keep the pain at bay. Each morning, she wakes with a knot in her chest, wondering if she can ever truly be free. The Buddha taught that letting go is not about loss, but about liberation. We cling to ideas of who we are, what we need, what life should be. This clinging, he said, is the root of suffering. Clara's clinging shows in her endless to-do lists, her late nights perfecting presentations, her fear of making a single mistake. She believes that if she just works harder, plans better, she can outrun the uncertainty. But the more she grips, the heavier life feels. One afternoon, Clara's manager calls her into a meeting. A project she poured months into is being shelved, not because of her work, but because of budget cuts. She feels the ground slip beneath her. Anger flares, then despair. She wants to fight, to fix it, to prove the decision wrong. But as she walks home, the mindfulness book heavy in her bag, she remembers a story the Buddha told. A man built a raft to cross a river, carrying it on his back long after he reached the other side. The raft was useful, the Buddha said, but once the river is crossed, set it down. Do not carry what you no longer need. Clara sits in her apartment, the city's hum a faint pulse beyond her window. She thinks of the project, her effort, her identity tied to its success. What if she let it go? Not the work itself, but the need for it to define her. She tries a practice from her book. Sitting quietly, she visualizes her anger as a stone in her hand. She imagines setting it down, not with force, but with care, like placing a fragile thing on the ground. Her breath slows, and the knot in her chest softens, just a little. Letting go, she learns, is not a single act, but a practice, a gentle unraveling. The Buddha spoke of non-self, the idea that we are not fixed, separate beings, but part of a vast, changing flow. Clara's pain comes from believing she must be the perfect worker, the perfect daughter, the perfect self. But what if she is not a single, unchanging thing? What if she is allowed to fail, to change, to simply be? She begins small experiments. At work, she stops checking her email every 5 minutes. She says no to an extra task, her heart racing but her resolve firm. One evening, she writes a letter to her father, not to send, but to release. She pours out her hurt, her longing, then folds the paper and tucks it away. It is not gone, but it feels lighter, like a leaf slipping from a branch to float on the river. A proverb from the Buddhist teachings echoes in her mind. Like a leaf on the river, flow without crossing. Clara is not free of worry, but she is learning to loosen her grip. She notices moments of ease, a laugh with a coworker, the warmth of her morning coffee, the way the city lights shimmer after rain. These are not solutions, but reminders that life is more than her struggles. By letting go, she makes space for something new, something that feels like freedom. Clara's world feels softer now, as if the edges of her days have been smoothed by her small acts of compassion. She feels a sense of connection to others. Yet loneliness clings to her, a sense that her struggles are hers alone. In the city's endless rush, she feels unseen, disconnected, as if no one truly knows her. This loneliness is an ache we all know. We live in a world of constant connection screens, messages, notifications, yet we often feel more alone than ever. Clara sees it in the faces of strangers on the subway, in the hurried conversations at work. She wonders if there is a way to bridge this gap, to find meaning not just within herself but with others. The Buddha taught that compassion is the medicine for a wounded heart. He spoke of loving kindness, or metta, as a practice of wishing well for all beings, friends, strangers, even those who have caused us pain. Compassion, he said, begins with ourselves but flows outward, like a river finding its way to the sea. One afternoon, she passes a community center near her apartment. A sign invites volunteers to serve meals to those in need. On impulse, she signs up, unsure why, but drawn to do something beyond herself. The first day, she lingers behind a counter, offering soup into bowls, her hands unsteady. She meets the eyes of a man her age, his clothes worn, his smile tired but kind. "Thank you," he says, and something in Clara softens. She sees not just a stranger, but a person carrying their own unseen burdens. The Buddha once shared a story of a monk who sat in meditation, seeking enlightenment. A cry interrupted his focus, a child, lost and afraid. The monk rose, took the child's hand, and walked miles to find her home. Only then did he return to his meditation. Enlightenment, he realized, was not in solitude, but in the act of caring. Clara, serving soup, feels a faint echo of this truth. Each bowl she hands out, each small conversation, weaves a thread of connection. Her loneliness begins to loosen, like a knot slowly unraveling. She starts to practice metta in her quiet moments. Sitting on her couch, she closes her eyes and whispers silently, May I be at peace. May I be free from suffering. Then she extends the wish outward to her mother, her co-workers, the man at the community center. At first it feels strange, but over time, the words grow warm, like a fire kindling in her chest. She notices how this practice shifts her perspective. At work, she listens more closely to a struggling colleague. On the subway, she offers her seat to an elderly woman. Small acts, but they ripple. A saying from the Buddhist teaching stays with her. To heal your pain, heal another's heart. Clara is beginning to see that compassion is not just a gift to others, but a balm for her own wounds. By reaching out, she feels less alone. By giving, she receives. The city, once a maze of isolation, begins to feel like a web of shared stories, each person carrying their own fears and pains, yet capable of kindness. Clara's heart, once guarded, starts to open, and in that opening she finds a new kind of strength. Clara's steps grow lighter, though the weight of her fears and old wounds still lingers in quiet moments. The community center, with its clatter of dishes and murmured thanks, has become a haven, a place where she feels part of something larger. Yet life never stays still. Just as Clara begins to find her footing, change arrives, unbidden. Her company announces a restructuring, and her role once secure shifts to a new team, a new city. The news lands like a stone in her stomach. Fear creeps back, whispering of uncertainty, of starting over, of losing the fragile balance she's found. Change is the heartbeat of existence, yet it unsettles us. We build our lives like sand castles, hoping they'll stand against the tide. Clara feels this now, her mind racing with what-ifs. What if she fails in this new role? What if she can't adapt? The old urge to control rises again. But in her quiet moments, with her mindfulness book or her breath steady, she recalls the Buddha's teaching of impermanence. Nothing lasts, not joy, not pain, not the life we know today. To resist change is to fight the river's flow. To embrace it is to learn its dance. The Buddha once told a story of a merchant who crossed a desert, carrying precious goods. A storm swept through, scattering his possessions across the dunes. Devastated, he wept, but a wise traveler said, "Your tears will not bring back what's lost. Gather what remains and walk on." The merchant did, and in time he found new paths, new treasures. Clara, facing her own storm of change, wonders if she too can gather what remains and keep moving. She decides to try. Instead of resisting the move, she begins to prepare, not just with plans, but with her heart. She visits the community center one last time, sharing a meal with the people she's come to know. The man with a tired smile asks about her move, and she shares her fears. He listens, then says, "I've moved a lot. It's hard, but you find new homes in new places." His words, simple and true, settle in her like a seed. Clara starts practicing mindfulness with intention, focusing on the present moment to steady herself against the unknown. Each morning she sits for 5 minutes, noticing her breath, the weight of her body, the sounds of the world waking up. When thoughts of the future intrude, she acknowledges them, then lets them pass, like clouds across a wide sky. She begins to see change not as a threat, but as a rhythm, a pulse that carries life forward. At work, she meets her new team virtually, their faces unfamiliar but kind. She feels the old fear of not being enough, but she breathes through it, remembering the Buddha's words, all that arises passes away. This moment, this fear, this new beginning, it will not last forever. She doesn't need to master it. She only needs to meet it. She starts small, asking questions, listening, letting herself be a beginner. To her surprise, her new colleagues respond with warmth, easing her into the unknown. A proverb from the Buddhist time lingers in her mind. The only constant is change. Embrace it and be free. Clara is not yet free, not entirely. The move still looms, and fear still visits in the quiet hours. But she is learning to move with change, to step lightly, to trust the flow. Each moment she chooses to let go, to be present, she feels a little more alive, a little more at home in the world's vast, ever-shifting current. Clara stands at the edge of her new city, her suitcase at her feet, the skyline unfamiliar yet alive with possibility. The move has happened, boxes unpacked, a new apartment filled with the scent of fresh leaves. Her new role stretches her, asking new effort from her, yet she feels a quiet resilience growing within. She's not alone anymore, but connected to others through her acts of compassion. One evening, Clara wanders into a small temple tucked away by the city's high-rises. The air is heavy with incense, and a statue of an ancient wanderer gazes ahead. She sits on a cushion, joining a meditation group, her first time in such a space. The teacher, an elder with kind eyes, speaks of the path's first truth. See life as it is, neither good nor bad, but always changing. See your thoughts as clouds, not heavy truths. Clara closes her eyes, her breath a gentle guide, and tries to see her fears this way real, but not forever, not hers to keep. The path, she learns, is practical. It means speaking kindly, acting justly. She shares a gentle word at work, calming a storm. She helps at a shelter, finding joy in giving. It's about staying present, sitting with life's breath, seeing the world without judgment. Each choice she makes builds a quiet strength, a steady rhythm. One day she meets a gardener who speaks of lost drought, storms, hard years. He says, life brings trouble, and you can't dodge it, but you can choose how to meet it. Clara feels the truth of this. Her new city, her role, her old wounds, they're her troubles. Yet, by walking this path, she's choosing to meet them with care, with kindness to herself and others. She starts to write not just her fears, but her moments of peace. A walk in the rain, a rainbow over the city. A call with her mother, their voices soft, no longer heavy. A smile from a stranger at the shelter, a reminder of shared hearts. These moments are her path, her practice, her proof that peace is possible, not as a far-off dream, but as a quiet, a saying from an ancient teacher settles in her heart. Every step toward mindfulness is a step toward freedom. Clara knows the path is lifelong, that fear and pain will return, but she's not alone. The temple, the shelter, the city, they're filled with others walking their own paths, each step a small act of courage. By choosing this way, Clara is weaving a life not free of pain, but rich with meaning, with peace that grows like a lotus from the mud. Clara's new city no longer feels strange. Its streets carry the rhythm of her steps, steady, purposeful, alive. The temple is a regular refuge, its quiet halls a mirror to the stillness she's growing within. Her work, though challenging, feels less like a fight and more like a dance, one she's learning to move with. Fear and pain still visit old companions they are, but they no longer hold her captive. Clara is not cured, not in the way one might hope for a tidy ending. Instead, she has transformed, her heart open to life's ebb and flow, her spirit rooted in a deeper truth. The ancient teacher taught that awakening is not a single moment, but a lifelong unfolding. It's not about becoming someone new, but about remembering who we are, beings capable of wisdom, compassion, and peace. Clara sees this now. Her fears were tied to stories she told herself of not being enough, of needing to control the world. By meeting those stories with kindness, she has begun to rewrite them, not with grand gestures, but with quiet, daily choices. One morning, Clara wakes early and walks to a park near her apartment. The air is cool, the grass damp with dew. She sits beneath a tree, her breath slow, her mind resting in this moment. She thinks of her mother, folding cranes years ago, each fold a wish for a better life. Clara feels she is living that wish not perfectly, but truly. She pulls a notebook from her bag and writes a letter to herself, a promise to keep walking this path, to keep choosing peace over fear, compassion over isolation. At the shelter, she notices a young woman, new to helping, her eyes heavy with hidden struggles. Clara offers a smile, a small gesture, but one that carries the weight of her own journey. "It gets easier," she says, and the woman nods, a flicker of hope in her gaze. Clara sees herself in that moment, not the Clara of old, weighed down by pain, but the Clara who is learning to carry her wounds lightly, to offer them as a bridge. The teacher's final lesson, given beneath ancient trees, was simple. Be your own light. Clara is becoming that light. Not a blazing fire, but a soft glow, steady enough to guide her way and, perhaps, to show others. She knows the path is not straight. There will be days when fear tightens its grip, when pain whispers old stories. But she also knows she has tools now, a breath to steady her, a practice to ground her, a heart open to the world's shared struggles. As she sits in the park, a breeze stirs the leaves above, and a saying from the ancient teachings rises in her mind. Every step toward mindfulness is a step toward freedom. Clara smiles, feeling the truth of it in her bones. Her life is not free of fear or pain, but it is richer, fuller, more alive. She is part of the river now, flowing with its currents, trusting its course. And in that trust, she finds not an end, but a beginning, a life transformed, moment by moment, breath by breath. This is the invitation of the path, to meet life as it is, to walk with courage, to find peace not by escaping pain, but by embracing it as part of the whole. Clara's story is yours too. Wherever you are, whatever burdens you carry, know that each step you take toward mindfulness, toward compassion, is a step toward freedom. Begin where you are. Take one breath, one moment, one truth. The path is waiting.